What is DevOps in the context of the Safe for DevOps Health Radar? Please note that everything that I'm going to say and everything that I'm going to show you is under the license of Scaled Agile. The Scaled Agile framework is a framework. Use it as a toolbox. Take out of this toolbox what you need, what solves your problem. In my previous videos, we had a look at continuous exploration. We had a look at how we are going to get all of the ideas from the business, but also from the customer, and transform these ideas into epics with a clear hypothesis statement. Then we had a look at how we are going to check these hypotheses with the clients, doing some interviews with the clients, and also making some market research in Collaborate and Research. After that, we looked at how we can define the minimal architecture to prove the hypothesis. This is what we do in Architect. And then we synthesized everything together so that we can create out of the epics the features which we then put onto our backlog and which defines also our roadmap. With these features, we are now going into the develop step. In the develop step, we are going to split the features into stories, and these stories are then implemented, and the code which we have implemented is going into version control. Why are we doing this? A feature is something that is bigger than an iteration or a sprint. That's why we need to split these features into stories. But what we really want to do with these stories is to implement high quality code with built-in quality. With that, we really want to ensure that the code which we are creating is already on a high quality standard. Again, this is because we want to build the right thing right. From the synthesize step, we have the features. These features are now split into stories. There are various splitting techniques out there. You can see that on this map, and you can download this map over this link. Usually, what you do when you are splitting a feature into smaller stories is you are going to analyze the feature and you are going to identify what are the steps to build this feature and what is the minimum thing which has value for the business or for the client which we can build right now. An example for that is when we need to build a new website with multiple input forms which we have there. Then the minimum thing that we can build right from now on is build a website which has nothing on it and just is the website, and connect this website with the rest of the application, so with the backend, and perhaps also already have a connection to an external system or to the database and display something on this website, which is coming from the database or from the external system. So this could be a small user story for a big feature which we are going to implement first. Why are we doing that? Because with that we can already show that we can integrate, that we can build something, and it has already value for the business and for the client. Only splitting the features in user stories is not enough. We need to write the user stories. And a user story has always this template you can see here. A user story has a title and it has a sentence which shows us what user wants to execute what activity so that he gets what business value. This is this sentence here. And it has a clear set of acceptance criteria, which you can see here, and they are preferably written in the given when then form. This is the behavior-driven development, BDD, which we use. And with that, we get directly out of that an executable specification, and with that, we are getting a test which we can implement. What BDD is and how you can use it is something you can see in this video. Here you can see an example how such a user story or story can look like. First of all, we have the title, limit the amount of money before fueling. And then we have the sentence, which is, as a driver, I want to limit the amount of money before I fuel so that I can control my expenditure. And then we have the acceptance criteria down here. Given that the driver indicates a maximum amount of money, when the fuel cost reach the amount, then the fueling process stops automatically. You can see with such a user story, we have very good defined what we want to achieve with this story. And as a benefit, we already have with the given when then form or with behavior-driven development a test case which we can implement, and out of that we have a running test and an executable specification. Now we have a user story and we can start with the implementation. For that we use a test-first approach, which is test-driven development. What TDD is and how you can use it is something that I have shown in these two videos up here. We use TDD for implementing user stories, but also for fixing bugs. The first thing we are going to do is we write a test. And then we execute this test and we have a red test because the implementation is missing. The next thing we are going to do is we write as much code to let the test pass. So then we have a green test. Now with this passing test and with all the other tests that we have, it is safe to do refactorings. And then after that, we are going to write another test. This is how we do test-driven development. The benefit of test-driven development is that I get tests for my implementation and that I am sure that my implementation really does what is specified. When the user story is already defined or written with behavior-driven development, so that we have the acceptance criteria already in the given when-then form, then it is even easier to create directly out of that the tests. We want to build in quality right from the beginning. That's why we use the test-first approach. We use test-driven development. We write first the tests. And we use also behavior-driven development for writing the acceptance criteria in the given when-then form so that we directly have an executable specification. We also use pair work, which means that we do, for example, pair programming. So two persons are working together on a user story, which heavily improves the quality and also the speed while implementing such user stories. And instead of using the traditional V model, where we write the features, then we write the user story, then we write the code. After we have written the code, we write some tests, then we test the story, and then we test the feature, or someone else tests the feature. Instead of that, we use the shift-left approach, which we can see here. There, we are going to write the features directly with behavior-driven development, which is we already write the tests in the given when-then form. We write also the user stories with behavior-driven development so that we have an executable tests out of that. And then we write the code, and when we write the code, we directly write it in the TDD way, which is test-driven development, or the test-first approach, where we write the tests directly. This is the shift left. This means that we write the tests directly in, and with that we are building the quality in right from the beginning, so that it does not need to be tested afterwards. Please watch the following 2 videos for Agile testing and also for the testing pyramid, so that you understand the Agile testing approach and the shift left approach. Now that we have written the code, we will commit the code into our version control system. But not only the code should be in the version control system, everything should be in the version control system. All the assets should be there. So be that code, infrastructure configuration, the tests, the test data, the requirements, the architecture, everything needs to be under version control. By having everything under version control, we are able to version everything that is in there, so that we can see what has been deployed or will be deployed with a specific version. We see the code, we see the infrastructure configuration, the tests, the test data, the requirements, everything. And this is a big benefit for the traceability. We need to implement application telemetry. Back in the architect step, I told you that we need to architect for operability. You can see that in this video up here. Architecting for operability means that we need to identify how we can operate this system without logging into the production server and hunting their bugs. So we need to think about what kind of informations do we need to log out into a telemetry system or a logging system, and collect all of the informations there so that we can operate the system as efficient as possible. But also we need to have the information to evaluate our hypothesis. For that, we as architects and also as developers use logging statements or application telemetry. We log out the informations that are needed so that we can operate the system as efficient as possible in production without logging into the production system. We collect with that runtime data, but not only runtime data, also business data is needed to evaluate the hypothesis. With that, we can assure that the system runs as smooth as possible in production, and if something happens, we are able to track and to see what happened in production, and we can solve this problem as fast as possible. That's why application telemetry is very important. In the architect step, which you can see in this video here, we talked about threat modeling. We talked about how we need to identify all of the threats for our application, the the attackers and also the attack vectors, so that we are able to architect to address all of these security concerns. So now, in the develop step, we need to address exactly these security concerns. We need to develop code which addresses these security concerns that we have identified in the architect step. The output of the develop step is that we have stories which are going to be implemented or which are going to be implemented in the next iteration or the next sprint. These stories are refined together with the development team. We have, of course, also code which is committed into the source code repository, and for the code we have tests, unit tests, integration tests, and also end-to-end tests, which test the code which we have committed. So the output in the end of this step is code. So what tools are we using for the develop step? As I just mentioned, the source control management tools are very important because we are creating code and we want to commit this code. Here you can see a list of tools for the source control management. But also for the user stories, we need to have tools. There are two different sets of tools. There are the enterprise agile planning tools, which can do that, but there are also less complicated issue tracking tools, which we can see down here. SAFe provides an assessment, which you can download down here, which is in an Excel file, and with that you can assess yourself in the different activities which we have in the SAFe for DevOps Health Radar. Here we are going to assess ourselves in the develop step. So developing in the continuous delivery pipeline involves splitting features into stories, implementing stories in the vertical slices using test-driven development, TDD, and committing changes to version control as they are made. So please rate now your team's ability to quickly and reliably define and implement stories. You are a sit when the team backlog does not exist or is not used to manage daily work. You are a crawl when stories are either incomplete or too verbose. Unit tests are generally not written, peer reviews are not conducted. You are a walk when stories are complete, most changes have unit tests, peer reviews are usually conducted. You are a run when code is checked in daily, unit tests coverage is 80% plus, peer reviews are always conducted. And you are a fly when code is checked in multiple times per day, tests are written before code, test-driven development, pair work, and other building quality practices are the norm. Please note that I cannot agree with this statement here of the unit test coverage above 80%. Having a unit test coverage and this metric is a good thing for the developer and for the development team. It indicates them areas where they perhaps need to improve. It is a decision of the developer or the development team in what area they want to have what kind of unit test coverage. And there can be areas in the code where a unit test coverage of 0% is absolutely okay. In the develop step, we are going to take the features from the continuous exploration and we are splitting them up into user stories. These user stories are going to be implemented, and when the implementation is done, we are committing them into the version control system. This source code, which have been committed, will then be taken up by the next step, which we will have a look in the next video. There we are going to build the code. And with that, we are at the end of this video. Please leave me a thumbs up if you liked this video, and also don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I will create every week a new video for you.